Hi, everyone. Welcome to breakout room number 1. I'll just give it a few more seconds to see if we have some others join, but I am happy to be with you all tonight. And Dahlia and Sarah and Jess and Noam, if you could turn on your cameras, if at all possible, that would be greatly appreciated, as I would love to see your faces. Okay, thank you, Noam. We still have some people who have not chosen a room yet, so I'm just going to give it a few more seconds, and then we will go ahead and get started. So we're just waiting on a few more people to select a breakout room, but I'm so happy to see you all. And I will just give it one more minute. Okay,
Nancy, I think a lot of them are States people. They're
great.
staff.
Great. I'm going to go ahead and get started then. Good evening, everybody. My name is Nancy Kaplan, and I am so happy to be with all of you tonight. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'll tell you a little bit about ADL, and then we will just jump right into our program. So again, my name is Nancy Kaplan, and my full-time work is actually at St. John's University. But I have been with the Anti-Defamation League for more than 25 years. And I'm really fortunate in that I get to speak to a lot of different groups of people. How many of you are football fans? NFL football fans? If you're a football fan, raise your hand. All right, if you're a basketball fan, raise your hand. Okay, so one of the things that I do is I spend a lot of time with professional football teams, basketball teams, hockey teams, talking about very important topics. But the topic that we are here to talk about tonight is absolutely the one that is most important to me, because being a Jewish person is something that is very important to me. And I think it's important that we learn how to combat anti-Semitism wherever we see it. So has any of you ever heard of the Anti-Defamation League or the ADL? Anybody? So I want to tell you a little bit about who we are. So I want you to imagine way back in time, over 100 years ago, there being a pencil factory in Atlanta, Georgia. And in that pencil factory, there was a man who worked there by the name of Leo Frank. And one night, a terrible crime was committed where a young lady was actually killed in the pencil factory. When the police were doing an investigation and they were trying to figure out who had committed this crime, Leo Frank said all along that he had nothing to do with this crime. Even still, he was thrown in jail. He was put on trial. He was convicted of the crime. And while he was sitting in jail and appealing his case, he was actually pulled from the jail and he was hanged in the middle of town. I want to ask you all a question. Why do you think people hated Leo Frank so much? Anybody have a guess? Jake, tell me, turn on your mic and tell me.
Was he Jewish?
He was. And that was the reason. That was the reason, Jake. And so that incident, as well as a few others that were happening at that time, really caused a group of people to come together to say, we need to fight against the defamation of the Jewish people. And so since 1913, all the way until now, fighting against hatred against the Jewish people has been what the ADL has done every single day. And I will tell you, especially the young people on the screen, that unfortunately, even though there's an anti-defamation league, there's still anti-Semitism in our world, in our country. Unfortunately, we see it in every state. And so one of the things that we feel we can do is not scare you, because that's not what this program is about. But what it is about is helping you to identify anti-Semitism and to know how to do something when it is that you see it. So my goal for tonight is this. I want to talk about your Jewish identity and apply your Jewish identity to how you think and how you behave. I want to talk a little bit about some historical forms of anti-Semitism and how they relate to what's happening today. I'm going to give you certain scenarios to think about, and we'll talk about what you can do in those situations to address what you see. And then we'll talk about the skills that I think you need to be able to address it. So to begin the conversation, here's what I'd like to do. I would like for all of you to think about what anti-Semitism looks like. So I want you to turn on your microphone. You could raise your hand and I'll call on you. And I want you to think about examples that you see of what anti-Semitism is. So give me some examples. And those of you who are not on camera, I would invite you to turn on your mic. You can use your reaction button to raise your hand and I will call on you. Okay, Noam, thank you.
Well, I think that anti-Semitism is like people committing hate crimes or maybe like racial discretions against the Jewish people.
Yeah, anti-Semitism is a term that's used to describe prejudice and discrimination against the Jewish people. And certainly hate crimes fall into that category. So you're absolutely right. Can you think of an example of a crime?
Okay, I remember hearing a story, I think it was from my dad, that somebody threw a rock through his window because he's Jewish.
That's a perfect example, right? That is an absolutely perfect example. So thank you for sharing that, Noam. Your dad would be really proud to know that you shared that. You were listening.
He's here.
He is here somewhere. He's kind of
Is he?
floating, but I'm going to tell him. So thank you for that. How about you,
Okay.
Jake? Can you think of an example of what it looks like where you see something and you say, now that's anti-Semitism?
Well, like for the past few weeks, I'm pretty sure this counts, but at like schools in my town, there like people have been finding swastikas.
It definitely counts. That is a great example of what anti-Semitism looks like. And I will tell you, it's not only your town. Unfortunately, I live in New York and I live on Long Island. And there's plenty of places on towns on Long Island where we find the same thing. But that's exactly what it looks like, right? So it looks like crimes, Noam, like you pointed out, and Jake, it looks like a swastika. Any other examples that you can think of? And adults, I would ask you to share also. And Dan, I will tell you that you would be very proud of Noam. He was our first volunteer and was listening to you and gave us a great example of what anti-Semitism looks like. So you should be very proud.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you. Good job, Norm.
Other examples of what it looks like. Yes, Alana?
If someone even is talking rudely about Jewish people and making mean comments about them, I think that also can apply.
It definitely can apply. And that actually is part of my second question. And my second question is, what does it sound like? Right? And so rude comments certainly fall into that category. So what does it look like? What does it sound like? What are some of the rude comments that you've heard about Jewish people? Yes, Alana.
Someone at my school actually came up to me and asked me if they could say the K word to me. So that was really offensive to me.
Absolutely. And I would love to know later how you responded. Okay, so we'll talk about that later. I'm sorry that happened to you. What else does it sound like? What are some of the stereotypes? Anybody know what a stereotype is? Jake, are you raising your hand?
I'm pretty sure there's like Jews have horns and long nose, or
Yes, that is exactly
it
what it
is.
sounds like.
Is it classified as a slur? The K word? Yeah.
Yes,
So it's a derogatory term against Jews.
yes, it is. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, Jake, the example that you just gave about, Jews have horns or Jews have big noses, those are derogatory things that are based on, stereotypes. Does anybody know what a stereotype is? Yeah, Jake.
Basically, just like classifying one person as like a whole group, or just like this didn't even happen. So it was just like, did it start in Germany?
Okay. Noam, what were you going to say a stereotype is?
I was going to ask a question. What is the K word?
So it's a derogatory term used towards Jewish people. And I'm not going to say it here, but you can definitely ask your dad later.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, a stereotype, Jake, as you started to say, is like, it's a generalization about a group of people. And so, I've heard things like all Jews are rich, all Jews are cheap, Jews control the media. Those are some of the things where, when people are lumping all Jewish people into one category, that's a very unfair categorization. And it's based on stereotypes, and it often is anti-Semitism. So let me ask you this. We came up with some examples. By the way, I just thought of another example of anti-Semitism and what it looks like in a town that I was passing through. We just celebrated Hanukkah, and somebody had knocked over the menorah that was in the town, right? So that's also what it looks like. Let me ask you this. What do you think it feels like to be the target of anti-Semitism? How many of you have experienced anti-Semitism? Let me ask that first. Okay, Jake, you have not? I'm happy to hear that. I'm definitely happy to hear that. How about you, Amiel? No? So for my adults on the screen, how many of us have experienced anti-Semitism? So the reality is that as you get a little bit older and you kind of are involved in different things, that's where you might start to experience it. Hopefully not, but chances are you might. And so can you imagine what it would feel like? And then I'm going to ask some of the adults to share, but I'd like to hear from the children first. What do you think it would feel like to be the target of hate? Yes, Alana.
Upsetting because like someone's like targeting you and your religion, like just you, and it just feels not good, and you're like, it feels like you're like alone or something, and you can't really do anything to stop it because there's so many people that do it.
Absolutely, definitely. Jake, yes.
I guess like bullying, sort of like feeling alone.
Absolutely, right? And I don't know about you, but I never like to feel alone, right? So it could make you feel alone. It could make you upset. What else do you think it could make you? Well, I'll give you an example. So I was visiting someplace in South Carolina, and it was the kind of situation where I didn't really know where I was going, but I was going to visit a school. And around my neck, I had on my Jewish star, which I wear all the time. And I was in a taxi cab driving to the airport, or driving to the hotel from the airport. And the driver of the taxi kept looking in the rear view mirror more times than felt comfortable to me. So finally, he said to me, "Let me ask you something. What's that around your neck?" And I looked down and I saw my Jewish star. And I did something that to this day breaks my heart, because I picked it up and I put it in my shirt and I hid it. Why do you think I did that? What do you think I was feeling? Yes, Jake. Yes, Alana.
I guess
What do you think?
like scared.
Yeah, Alana, what were you going to say?
I was gonna even say like ashamed that you were wearing that because someone else was being mean about it.
Yeah, you know what? In this particular case, I have to agree with Jake. I was afraid. I was scared. So I put it in my shirt, but I will tell you this, I'm never ashamed, ever, to wear my Jewish star, to be Jewish, I'm never ashamed of that. I never will be ashamed, but I was afraid, right? And so in that moment, I just wanted to hide that part of myself. And the reason that I said to you that it broke my heart is because I had promised myself that I would never, ever, ever hide being Jewish. But in that particular moment, when I was alone, it was at night, it was a place I didn't know where I was afraid. So anti-Semitism is hurtful in a lot of ways. It could make us upset. It could make us angry. It can make us afraid. It could make us feel lonely. If we don't ask for help when we are confronted with anti-Semitism, it can make us sad. And so one of the things that I want to say to you before we do our next activity is that there is always something that you can do when you see a situation that includes some form of anti-Semitism. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at some situations, and I'm going to ask one of you to read the situation, and then I'm going to present you with 4 choices of what you could do. And I'm going to ask you to think about what you would do and why you would do that. And then we'll talk about it. Does that make sense? Okay. So let me go ahead and share my screen again. And we're going to talk about this first situation. Okay. So let me come to Alana. Alana, can you read this situation for us, please?
Sure. One day when you arrive at school, you discover a swastika drawn in marker on the door of your locker. What would you do?
Okay, so let me give you the choices of what you could do. Okay. So the first thing that you could do is you could get a paper towel right away. You could run to the bathroom. You can get a paper towel, you can wet it, and you can get back to your locker, and you can wash that swastika off as soon as you possibly can. Another thing that you could do is you could leave the swastika on your locker door and you could go to the office to report what happened. A third thing that you could do is you could just stop using your locker and carry your backpack around with you. It's not all that heavy and you don't really need your locker. Or maybe you would come up with some other response of what you could do. So what I would like you to do is type into the chat the number of what you would do. And I'm going to give everybody a second to weigh in. Okay. I see a couple of 2s. I see 4s. I see a 1 or a 2. So let me ask, Riley, can you turn on your microphone and tell us why you chose number 2?
I chose 2 because I think somebody should know that somebody drew this on your locker.
So Riley, let me ask you a question. When you go to the main office, who do you ask for when you get there?
I would talk to maybe the principal.
Okay, so you would ask to speak to the principal.
Yeah.
Tell me, Riley, why the principal?
Because I think the principal could make like the most impact and let the school know.
Yeah, like they have the most authority.
Excellent response, right? You want to speak to the person who has authority. So that's a great response. Now, Riley, let me ask you, what do you say to the principal?
I think I would say that somebody drew a swastika on my locker and maybe I would tell them how I would feel, like scared.
Okay, that's a really good strategy, Riley. Thank you for that. Rachel, can you turn on your camera and tell us why you chose number 2 also?
Sorry, my camera's on. I think you wanted me to unmute, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Rachel.
That's
Yep.
okay. My other job is I work in a public school, and knowing from an administrative point of view that although I would want to immediately wipe it off, I know this is something that you would need to gather evidence of. And so I would go to the main office immediately, talk to the principal. Awesome job knowing that you want to talk to the principal. And then the principal would take some really important steps legally because there are legal components that a school needs to do.
Okay. I want to hear from Jules because you have a different response. You would come up with something else. So what would you do, Jules?
So I'm Jules' dad. Jules is too shy to come to the to
the microphone.
come to the microphone.
Okay.
But so I don't know what his response would be. I think he did say that he would try to ignore it as best as he could. But he's unfortunately left the room right now. So
Okay, not a problem. That's
I can't
okay.
get any more information from him.
That's quite all right. Sarah, I want to hear from you. You said 1 or 2. Now, Sarah, why would you be thinking number 1? Let me ask you that.
Well, like personally at my school, it's not that bad, but I know at some schools, if people saw it, they'd like know you're Jewish, which isn't something to be ashamed of. But if they're also upset at Jewish people, they might take that as targeting you now because now they know it's there. I personally would like probably first go to report to the office, but then I would like immediately wash that after I reported it.
Okay, we'll talk about that, and I understand. I'll Oh yes, sure.
So I basically chose 4, but like a mix of 1 and 2. So like I would first get like a dry paper towel and like cover it because like I've heard stories of like copycat sort of situations of like people copying it. So I would cover it so people don't see it, but then I'd report it to like the office so the police or authorities can deal with it.
Okay, okay, I definitely understand that response too. And let me just ask, Ali, would you like to share?
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
My daughter had to leave the room also, but she was here earlier. She'll be back. So, but we thought number two, just because we thought that somebody who could maybe better handle it should be aware and be able to help other kids process it as well.
Yeah, so the best response here is really number two, or some combination of things that includes number two. And I want to tell you why. So first off, the person that is responsible for really ensuring that everyone feels safe in a school building, is respected in a school building, is the principal of the school. And so if you were ever to come into school, or if you were on the playground and you came across a swastika, you want to go to the person who is responsible for making sure that you are safe and respected in that school building. And that is the principal. Now, when you go to the principal, not only do you want to report what it is that you found, but you do want to add how it made you feel, because it's important that the principal know how it made you feel. Okay, so that's number two. I want to address number one for a minute, and this, immediate maybe want to get rid of it and wash it away. It's actually very important that you don't do that. Okay, first off, the embarrassment that you might feel is not your embarrassment. What you're really thinking about here is being targeted and being hurt by that, but the embarrassment is owned really by the person who did that. The reason that you don't want to wash it away is because that is really evidence that your principal would want to take a picture of. You may not believe it, but sometimes just by the simple handwriting, they might be able to see who did it. They want to hold evidence of it. After that's done, the school will wash it away. But you want to go to the principal, you want to tell them what happened, you want to tell them how that made you feel, and then you want to preserve the evidence that was there. So really, really great job on that first one. Let's go to this next scenario. And I think, Noam, can I ask you to read this one for us, please?
Okay. On the day before winter break, the students in your gym class are acting unruly and loud. When you pull off another classmate's baseball cap and throw it across the room, the teacher says, "If you don't sit down, you're all going to find out I can be worse than Hitler." What would you do?
Okay, so your first option is nothing. You're just not going to do anything because you're thinking if you report the teacher may make your life unbearable. So you do nothing. The second option is you go to that office and you report the teacher. The third option is you just start skipping gym class and you ask your parents if you can drop that class. And the fourth option is you do something different. Okay, so I want to see what you would answer here. And I want you to think about why you're choosing the option that you are. And so, Alana, let me start with you.
I would pick number two because if you're Jewish and if your teacher makes a comment about Hitler, it could be offensive because Hitler, as you all may know, killed a lot of Jews, many Jews, and it was not right what he did. So making a comment like that could be hurtful, and it's just not a good comment to make. Even as a teacher, you should know better to not do that.
So Alana, that's brilliant. And thank you for that. Let me ask you this. What is wrong with what the teacher said?
Well, he could have Jewish students in his class and making a comment like that, and how it's regarding something that's a very sensitive topic could make some people upset.
Very, very smart. And you know what? Not only do we have a right to be sensitive, all people, by the way, should know what happened during the Holocaust. And what is wrong with this comment is that it downplays or trivializes the terrible, 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 terrible person and thing that Hitler did. And so for a teacher just to make a comment, like as though it's, no big deal kind of thing is very, very, very offensive. So who are you going to ask for when you go to the office?
You're going to ask, I would say, the principal.
You're going to that same principal, right? Because if we found a swastika and now we have this situation, or even if they're two separate situations, that principal is the same person to go to. Riley, can you tell me what you're going to say to the principal?
You're going to report what the teacher said. And I think again, you should tell how you feel and how you think other Jews would feel.
Okay, right? I like that, right? You're going to talk about how you feel, and then you could talk about how maybe everyone in the Jewish community would feel. Very, very, very smart. Amiel, you said number one, and I'm really, really interested to know why. And I think I understand, but I want to hear from you anyway.
Well, they could just be making a joke. Like they might be saying that, and then everybody would just ignore them and go on because who would think nobody would think twice about that. At least I wouldn't.
Okay.
Because if you see it here, you take a second to think it through. But if it actually happened, you wouldn't really do anything, or at least I wouldn't, because it could just be a joke. It depends how it's said.
Can I add something?
Sure.
So I had some kind of the situation, but so some kid in my class, in my grade, compared my science teacher to Hitler. He's Jewish, and forget what it was even about, but anyway, we all reported it to the guidance counselor. So I think people, at least in my school, care and won't accept that.
So let me ask you all a question, right? Let's say this really did happen. How many of you would be upset, just by a show of hands? Yeah, and so what is the message, do you think, to the teacher, to your classmates, if you don't say anything? What do you think the message is there if you don't say anything? Yes, Alana.
It shows what type of person you are, and maybe you're not caring, or if you do care but you're just nervous to say something, it could show something too.
Yeah, sometimes when we don't say something, it's almost an indication like it doesn't matter to us. Now, this is a teacher who should know better. But let's say, ordinarily you like this teacher, the teacher has tried to make, a good connection with you and you enjoy the class. How many of you would have the courage to maybe tell the teacher how you felt? Alana, you would? What would you say to the teacher?
I would say, I really like your class and I think you're a great teacher, but the comment you made really hurt some people, and including me, and I think that you could do better than that, and next time just don't make comments like that.
Yeah, you know what, Lana, I give you all the what's the right word, all the credit in the world, and I'll tell you why. I was in this situation almost, not exactly, almost. It was my freshman foreign language class that I was in high school. and the teacher made a joke about Moses. And I was one of very, very few Jewish people in the whole school. But as soon as he said this comment, I became so hurt that I didn't know what to do. And so I went to my basketball coach, who was also Jewish. And I said to him what had happened. And I told him that I was so upset that this happened. And what he did is he went back to my teacher and he told my teacher how upset I was. And the next day, the teacher actually called me out into the hallway to apologize. And Alana, looking back on that situation, you know what I wish I would have done? I wish maybe I would have gone to that teacher myself, because I really, really did like him. And I knew that he liked me. And I wish I would have had the courage just to go to him to say, you know, you really hurt me when you said that. But that's not the easiest thing to do. But you know what? It says a lot when we are able to do that. I want to go to one more example. And let me just see if I can find the one that I'm looking for. Yeah, this is the one that I'm looking for. Okay, Jay, can you read this one for us, please?
You are walking down the hall with a group of friends, and one of them tells an offensive anti-Semitic joke about the Holocaust. All your friends respond by laughing. What would you do?
Okay, so first, nothing, right? Because they're only kidding and there's no harm done. They're just kidding around. Second, laugh along with them. You don't want to look like you don't have a sense of humor. Third, tell your friends the joke makes you uncomfortable. And fourth, some other response. So Amiel, I'd like to hear from you. You said you have a different response. What would you do?
At first I might not say anything, but I wouldn't laugh along or anything. Though I might not, but I might say, like, not continue walking down the hall with them. I might, like, trail behind so that I don't, if something else happens, I don't have to hear, and then maybe say something later.
Okay, I understand. I appreciate that perspective. How about Jake, what would you do in this situation?
I would tell them that like it makes you uncomfortable, and that I would explain how this is like this joke is bad and like why it can't be said.
Okay, I like that. Sarah, you said number 3. Can I ask what you were thinking here?
So it says a group of friends, and for me, I know that my group of friends is like really understanding, but a few of them might not really like fully know how much damage their words can do, because like we're all kind of like adolescents and we're like figuring it out. And so someone might let something slip out of their mouth, or like I might, or if something said something in the hall, I might, instead of like just getting really upset about it, I might just tell them, because there is a chance that they didn't know what like their words hurt someone or something.
Yeah, how many of you have ever heard of this saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me? How many of you have heard that? Well, you know what? It's not true.
Yeah.
Words do hurt. Words do hurt us, and words have power. And, you know, these are, you know, your friends. And if they are your real friends, then they would want to not hurt you, right? And so sometimes, you know, it takes a lot of courage to go directly to a person to let them know that they have hurt you in some way. But in any of these situations, there's one thing that you should never do. You know what that one thing is? That one thing is nothing. You should never do nothing. There's always something that you could do. And in addition to everything that you've said, if any of these kinds of things happen, who do you think I would want you to talk to about it outside of school? Who do you think? Yes, Alana.
Your parents, or maybe even your Hebrew school teacher.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. Amiel, what were you going to say?
Your parents.
Definitely, right? I mean, unfortunately, we have been through these kinds of things before, and we can help you figure out, right, what to do. And maybe it's not for you to figure out. Maybe it's for us, your parents, to figure out. I know in my town, just like your town, I'm sure your Hebrew school teacher can do something as well. You know, the rabbi of your synagogue can call the principal of the school or the superintendent of the school district. And that's very often what happens. But we can't, do something if you don't tell us what is actually happening. So we want you to tell us, okay? So in terms of skills that it takes to address these kinds of situations, I would say courage is really, really important. Okay, that's one skill. What's another skill that you think is important to address these situations? Yes, Alana.
I don't think being mean to someone is the right thing to do because they might not know what they're doing wrong. So you might want to inform them about it and tell them that that wasn't really nice, but you can't really get upset at them because they might not know.
So communication, I think, is what you're talking about, right? To communicate to the people that hurt you, or to communicate to the principal of your school what it is that was wrong with what they did. And you know what? I really, really love what Riley put in the chat. Riley, can you talk about that, please? This one is so important.
I said you have to have confidence, because if you don't have confidence, then you may be too scared to confront somebody.
Definitely. Absolutely. So we have communication, and we have courage, and we have confidence. We have a lot of C words. That's great. What else do you have to have? What skills do you have to have? Can anybody think of anything else? Does anybody know what conviction means? Anybody know? And can any of the adults explain what conviction is? So the way I would define conviction in this sense is to know that you are allowed to believe what you believe and to be proud of who you are. And my hope is that for all of you, you will always be proud to be Jewish, and you will always have the courage to stand up for yourself, and you will communicate with the people that can help you. Because, being Jewish is something that is very, very special. It is something that we should be incredibly proud of. And I know, for me, I've always had a handful of people that I know I could call if I felt that, something was not right. And those people included, my teachers, my rabbi, my parents. It's really, really important. Let me ask you this. How many of you would stand up for someone else if you knew that they were being bullied in school or targeted? How many of you would stand up for someone else? Yeah, often we stand up for others before we stand up for ourselves. And so, I really just want to encourage you to, pay attention. We had a really good conversation about what anti-Semitism looks like and what it sounds like and what it feels like. And we've talked about some of the things that you can do when you see it. And I just want to end with this. When I asked you how many of you knew of the ADL, none of you raised your hands, but now you do. And you should know that the ADL has 30 or so offices around the country. And one of the things that we do is we respond to anti-Semitism. So when something happens in a community, often a phone call is made to the ADL, and then it's the ADL that works with the leaders of that community to address it. So I say that because I don't want you ever to feel alone. There's always people around you that are here to support you on this issue. So let's end with this. What is one thing that you can do to confront anti-Semitism? Just drop that into the chat for me. Okay, let's do it. No, Alana, go ahead. You raise your hand. Let's turn on our mics and share. What's one thing you can do? And I know you have a special school project going on.
Yeah. You could talk to someone and tell them how you're feeling and how it makes you feel.
Fantastic. And Jules, you said you could tell a teacher. So thank you for that. What else? Noam, what can you do? Amiel, I'm coming to you. Amiel, you said tell a parent. Great. Noam, what could you do?
I mean, maybe you can try and deal with it yourself.
Okay.
Like, go up to the person and say, like, this is not good what you're doing, or something like that.
Yeah, I like that you can try and address it yourself. But if you don't feel that, you've gotten to where you want to get, you always know what you could do next, right? Anybody want to share anything else that you could do? So I see in the chat, know that you are not alone and there are people that can help you with your feelings and what to do to solve this. Absolutely. Michael, I see you have your hand raised.
I do, because I wanted to raise a point that I bet might be confusing to kids. I'm hearing from some of my students that people are making comments in their school, not necessarily anti-Semitic. They're not saying bad things about Jews, but they're saying things that are a little bit uncomfortable, where they're making a reference to something that could be construed as anti-Semitic. It might be about, oh, you're Jewish, but they're not being mean or they're not being offensive. They're just saying things that are making kids uncomfortable, Jewish kids who are in the room and hearing that.
Yeah. One of the things that I would say when that happens is come back to Hebrew school and talk about that with your family, right? If you are feeling that something is making you uncomfortable, then there's a reason for that. And it's worth a conversation, right? With a parent, with a Hebrew school teacher, with someone that you trust in that building, because I will tell you that your instincts in feeling uncomfortable are most often on target. And I would not want you to dismiss it like, oh, that's no big deal. If you feel like something is uncomfortable, then it's worth a conversation with someone that you trust. And that's a great point. Great point. I have loved this conversation. I think you are all brilliant and I appreciate you sharing. We're going to go back to our big room now, so you can leave this room. And then I will see you back in the big room in just about 2 seconds, I think it takes. See you there, everyone. And I just want to say to room number 1, you all did such a great job. I am so proud of you. I really, really am so proud of you all. Just a great job. And Alana, good for you with your school project.
Thank you.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Seems like they're wrapping up in the other 2 rooms.
Okay, great. Just gonna take up one more minute of everybody's time, and then I'll promise I'll let y'all go. Let's see where they all are.
While we have a down minute, I can call out, our kids were just great in that discussion.
They were.
Really.
I actually heard some of my colleagues were jumping around, and the middle school group apparently wins.
Yeah.
Very, very
Yeah,
impressive,
very, very
really.
impressive.
And the next time I see anti-Semitism, I may be calling some of you to help me figure out what to do.
Good to hear. It's good to get them thinking early,
Absolutely.
unfortunately, but it is what it is. Let's see what's going on with the others here. Okay. Let's see. Educators. How many do I have here? 1, 2, 3. So,
Okay, I just closed all the rooms.
okay. All right, I'll
So-
ask you guys later. All right.
So the parents just ended theirs, and Stephanie is wrapping up right now in room 2. I'll break
Okay.
it. We're closing. That's perfect. Made my job even easier.
I can
I don't know if we lost you or you couldn't do it or.
This was great.
Noam, you look tired, man.
He worked hard in this session.
Yeah.
He worked really hard.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, well, I guess he's gonna have to go to bed early tonight. Yeah, there he is. Awake. Ay, ay.
All right, I think we're all.
So I'll wrap up. David, I'll turn it back to you if you want to say a few words at the end, but oh wait, we're still getting people in? Okay.
Looks like everyone is now.
Got it. So I know this subject matter is difficult, especially for the younger kids to hear it, maybe some things maybe for the first time, but I always like to say knowledge is power. And hopefully tonight you gained some more knowledge. There's always a lot to learn in the future. And what is important to me is that we all stay in touch. In other words, let me know, let us know, Federation, if there's something going on in your schools or at your workplace, etc. As you heard tonight, we have the tools here locally, and we have the connections nationally to this great organization that facilitated tonight's program. So, let us know. We need to know, we want to know, and we'll know how to deal with it, whether through our local contacts in our law enforcement contacts or our legislators, that are in contact with us, and of course with Scott and the rest of the ADL team. I mean, we are here. So if there's anything I want you to go home with, that it's that. Take your knowledge that you learned tonight, apply it, and if you need to, let us know what's going on. We're here for you. David, if there's anything you want to say, or Scott?
I don't think I could have summed it up better myself. The only thing I will add is, I dropped my email in the chat. My role is to work with synagogues and college campuses. So if your synagogue or you have an incident, we always ask to report it, but, we at ADL also want to be individual liaisons to the community. So, as I said, I dropped in the chat, if you're interested in bringing programming to your synagogue, if something happens at your synagogue, please feel free to reach out to me. The goal is really to be a resource for everyone in the New Jersey and New York community.
Well said. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Have a great night.
Night.
Good night.